Since 2012, we have seen a fantasy tight end reach 15 points per game or more 23 times. That means on average, we only see 2 do it per season. However, if you are one of the lucky fantasy drafters that nails an elite tight end, it can go a long way towards dominating your league mates. In fact, in 2022, if you drafted Travis Kelce on Underdog, 30% of the time your team advanced to the playoffs. That was the 8th best out of all players on Underdog last year. And in 2021, Mark Andrews helped managers advance 29% of the time. That was the 9th best. While finding a 15 point per game tight end isn't necessarily easy, there is one factor that they have all had in common, and that is talent. On average, they have a target rate of 25%. That is a 6 percentage point advantage over tight end finishers 7 through 12. Armed with this information, we're going to rank the top 3 tight ends that could give you Travis Kelce-like upside. Number 1 is Mark Andrews. And let's start with the talent, folks. Well, first of all, he's done it before. In just 2021, he averaged 17.5 points per game and was the top tight end over Travis Kelce. In 2022, Andrews took a little bit of a step back, and that has drafters concerned. However, whenever you dig into the details, he suffered a knee injury in week 6, and up until that point, he was averaging 19.1 points per game. By the time Andrews was healthy and back in the lineup, we lost Lamar Jackson shortly after that in week 12, and he averaged 9.9 fantasy points to close out the season. However, he still remained dominant in the target earning department with a 23% target rate and accounted for 33% of the air yards. And ultimately, with Andrews, he's just been doing this for a long time. Over the last 4 seasons, he's put up target rates of 33%, 25%, 24%, and 25%. Now let's turn our attention to the environment in Baltimore, where he gets to play with Lamar Jackson. When the two have been on the field together, Andrews has had a 31% target share over the last 3 seasons. However, the Ravens have added Odell Beckham Jr. in free agency. They drafted Zay Flowers in the first round of the draft, and they get Rashad Bateman back. So the competition for targets is going to be stronger in 2023. However, we can't just jump to the conclusion that any of those guys are going to be elite target earners this year, especially with Andrews doing what he does. First, let's talk about Flowers. The average target rate for a first-round wide receiver going pick 20 or later is 19% since 2012. That brings us to Odell Beckham Jr., who will be almost 31 years old when the season starts, and the last time we saw him on the football field, he had a 19% targets per route run. Then we have Rashad Bateman, who was really good in his small sample last year with a 23% target rate. However, we haven't seen him produce that sort of production over an expanded period of time. So yeah, we do have some added competition here, but there's no guarantee any of these guys are going to really be huge. And even if one of them does take a step forward, get this. Going back over the last 3 seasons, when Andrews has been on the field with one of Bateman or Hollywood Brown, he has put up a 30% target share along with a 24% target rate. Andrews is the number 1 candidate to give you Kelce-like production, and guess what? You can get him in round 3 of your drafts, going next to names like Deebo Samuel as well as Calvin Ridley. I have him projected for more than those guys, and he gives you a positional advantage at tight end. If you hit, he is a priority in round 3 of fantasy drafts. That brings us to our second candidate, Kyle Pitts. Out of Atlanta, was great as a rookie, finished as the tight end 6 with 10.6 fantasy points per game, but really stumbled in 2022 with only 7.6 points per game. And guess what? That really hurt if you took him in round 3 of your drafts. However, here's the thing with Pitts. What if I told you that his underlying data profile actually improved in his sophomore season? As a rookie, he had a 21% target rate. That jumped to 27% in his sophomore campaign. And he offers a unique blend of talent. 45% of his targets turned into a 15-plus yard reception, by far the number one in the NFL. I feel you all staring at me. You're all shaking your head. I get it. The questions around Pitts, they're real. Who's going to play quarterback for this team? Last year it was Marcus Mariota. That wasn't good. Is Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke really going to provide an upgrade? While this may sound funny, I think the answer to that question is yes. So let's take a glass half full kind of approach. Number one, Marcus Mariota, only 59% of his targets to Kyle Pitts were actually deemed catchable by Pro Football Focus. That was the worst in the NFL. The average tight end is at 70%. So as bad as Ridder and Heineke could be, it's going to be very hard for them to repeat that kind of performance. And here's the other thing. One, Desmond Ridder could just surprise us. He doesn't have the draft capital. Is it likely? Probably not. But if he doesn't, Taylor Heineke actually might provide us with a better floor than we think. This really blew my mind with Heineke. But last season, in 7 of 9 starts, he supported a top 18 wide receiver finish in fantasy, and in 2 of those games, he supported 3 top 24 performers. I know, that's probably not enough to get you on board with Pitts, and I understand he's got a lot of target competition, even if the quarterback situation works out. Drake London had a 27% target rate as a rookie, and that is elite. However, last season, when you had Pitts and London on the field together, who do you think was the preferred target? You guessed it. It was Kyle Pitts with a 27% target rate. Now, London was still great at 25%, but both players were good enough to earn targets. Of course, there is one other factor we've got to talk about here with the Falcons, and it is the fact that they are a run-first offense. I don't expect that to change in 2023. However, they only dropped back to pass 49% of plays in 2022, and that is outlier bad. With Marcus Mariota moving on, less involvement from the quarterbacks in the design run game, I would expect to see this team drop back to pass 53 to 54% of the time. Again, still a run-heavy team, but more like the Tennessee Titans. That 5% increase, less inaccurate deep throws from Marcus Mariota, there is a lot of room here for Kyle Pitts to regress positively to the mean. So while Pitts has many factors working against him, the number one thing we care about is his talent profile, and he's still proven to be elite. And here's the beauty. Last year, you had to spend a round 3 pick to secure his services for your fantasy team. This year, he's going in round 6. Around players like Jahan Dotson, Kadarius Toney. These are wide receivers that have similar type questions, but at tight end, Pitts can truly differentiate your fantasy team from your league mates. That brings us to our third and final candidate, and that is Darren Waller of the New York Giants. Over the past 2 seasons, we've only seen Waller complete 9 and 11 games, and his fantasy production has slipped, but as recently as 2020, he posted a monster season with 17.5 fantasy points per game. So let's take a look at Darren Waller's talent profile. He did take a step back last season with a 17% target rate. However, he was battling the hamstring injury, and he was battling Devontae Adams for targets. If we look at the 3 previous seasons, his target rates were 24%, 27%, and 23%. Additionally, he has been a high-end air yard earner with shares of 23%, 24%, and 28% over the last 3 seasons. Yes, Waller will be 31 when the season starts, but we have seen really good tight ends play into their mid-30s. So let's turn our attention to the environment for Waller, where he's now with the New York Giants. We'll start with quarterback. He has Daniel Jones. And while Jones is probably never going to be a high-end yardage passer over 4,000 yards, he does have the potential to get to 3,500, 3,700 yards and we look at the Giants, wow, the target competition sets up very nicely for Darren Waller. Here are the career highs for the rest of the roster for the Giants. We have Isaiah Hodgins, 17% career high target rate. Darius Slayton, 17%. Paris Campbell at 19%. We do have Sterling Shepard, who put up a 24%, but that was a while back, and he's only played 48% of the games over the last 4 years. We have Wan'Dale Robinson, who was impressive as a rookie at 23%, but he suffered an injury at the end of last season that could create a slow start in 2023. Finally, we have third-round rookie Jalen Hyatt, who is a big play threat, but was never a high-end target earner in college. Right now in drafts, Darren Waller is falling to round 7. He's going by names like Gabriel Davis and Brandon Cooks, yet he offers a profile, even if we wanted to list him as a wide receiver, where I would say he's at even odds, if maybe not the favorite, to outperform those guys in yardage and touchdowns. And again, you get to play him at tight end, which can give you a bigger advantage against your league mates. Now, some of you are probably scratching your heads at this point, and you're thinking, Dwayne, what about George Kittle? What about TJ Hawkinson? So let's talk about those two. We'll start with Kittle. And while he does have that target earning profile that we want, so the talent is there. He does check that box. The issue is there's so many other options on the 49ers. We've got Deebo Samuel. We've got Brandon Ayuk. You've got Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the league as far as demanding targets out of the backfield. And even if one of them goes down, there's still a challenge here because we have quarterback questions in San Francisco, and it's a run-heavy offense. Not saying we can't draft Kittle, not saying there's not a path to upside for him. He just doesn't have as clean of a path as the other 3 players that we've already discussed. So now let's take a look at TJ Hawkinson, who's actually going in round 4 of drafts right now. Now, I'm not saying that he's not going to be a high-end tight end this season. He will be. He plays on a good offense that wants to throw the ball all the time, has a good quarterback in Kirk Cousins, but here's the challenge. He is a 20 to 21% target rate player. And historically, we don't see those guys pop for 15 plus fantasy points per game. Again, you can draft Hawkinson. You're probably going to feel good about your investment. I just don't think he has the upside to give you that Kelsey-like season. With Kittle and Hawkinson out of the way, there's one more player that I do want to mention here for you, and you can call him the sleeper of this list, and that is Chigoziem Okonkwo in Tennessee. Now, we did not have a large sample last year, only 172 routes run, but he was absolutely phenomenal with a 26% targets per route run and a 2.61 yards per route run. With Austin Hooper now gone to the Raiders, there is a clear path for Okonkwo to take over a larger role in the Titans offense this year, and he could be the surprise tight end of the 2023 season. And guess what? You can get him in rounds 11 or 12 of your fantasy draft, making him a great name to target if you miss out on the early options. So when you're thinking about the tight end position for your 2023 fantasy drafts, obviously the big name is still Travis Kelce. Like, Kelce's an alien. It's going to be really hard for any of these guys to provide you with his upside. But by following the process that we talked about today, we do start to isolate down on the traits that matter the most. And these names will give you a chance to combat the Kelce owner in your league and create your own advantage at the position.